the Amex Gold Bug Index is up 0.7%, while the Dow's down 0.8%, S&P's down over 1%.
Back in November, when we were making lows in gold, well, you were one of the few people to come out and say, you know what, this looks, and we talked about it on a show. You said this start looked like 2008, when we were talking about a massive rally that commenced in 2008, and because we were suggesting that gold can rise with the dollar, and I think it was an interesting time. But you were the first to actually nail that in our conversation. So I have to bring it up. I brought it up in my last episode as well, because you have to. You really do have to put the credit where it's due.
Oh, I appreciate that. As it turns out, I mean, what's unfolded since November is, again, it's very similar to the November-December period, and January, in 2008, 2009. One of the things, and I tweet about this, in fact, I tweeted about it today. I noticed, I want to say maybe starting in early December, and it might have been in November when it started occurring, but there's been several days where we've had big down days in the markets, the equity markets, and yet the precious metals sector diverges positively and moves higher. And today's a good example. I mean, the Amex Gold Bug Index is up 0.7%, while the Dow's down 0.8%, S&P's down over 1%, and NASDAQ's down 1.5%. So, I mean, there's been several days like that, and I mean, to me, that just underscores how bullish the current environment is for the precious metal sector.
I mean, also on top of everything else, I mean, it's not just us. I mean, there's a lot of empirical evidence, and our liquidity providers say there's a massive hole in when you add up the numbers and what you're seeing actually move, because China buys through third parties too, and we certainly know one or two of the liquidity providers are third parties, and it's unreported. I mean, there's no requirement to report it, and I think what happens is a lot of the time it gets deposited in the state-held banks, and it's there, but it's not counted as reserves because it's there. But at any point, and we've been saying, I know you've been on this as well, at any point they could turn it into reserves and publicize these reserves. It isn't in their advantage to do so, because why get the gold price to higher than you actually need it at this point?
That's right. And I think the only reason the numbers that go, the gold numbers into China through Hong Kong get reported is because Hong Kong reports them. It's not reported by the Chinese government. I mean, in terms of who has the custody of that gold, it really doesn't matter. But, I mean, the PBOC could have custody of it, and they're just telling us, I forget what their latest number was, 1,800 tons or something. I mean, they're telling the world one number when the real number is a lot higher. It's analogous to the Federal Reserve and the U.S. Treasury telling the world 8,100 tons in the United States, and more than likely the real number is considerably lower than that, if not zero at this point.
Yeah, and the question is how much of that 8,100 tons is rehypothecated, because as we all know, I mean, if you want any more of a glaring example, I mean, what a joke. It was Germany wanted like 300 tons back, and it was going to take 7 years. Also, they were refusing to allow audits. I mean, this is actually ludicrous stuff. So if you ever wanted a red flag, I mean, if I went to a vault and said, I'd like to pick up my gold, oh no, you're going to have to wait for it. Well, but it means it's not there. It just means it's either that or several people own it at the same time. So it's a farce.
Well, I mean, if you remember, I'm sure you remember the story. The German government wanted to send a delegation over to the Fed, over to New York, to inspect its gold being held in custody by the Fed. And the Fed responded with, well, no, the gold's spread out among 9 vaults. We'll let you into one. And like 9. And then a couple months later, that's when they made that repatriation request. And it was originally for, I want to say, 675 tons or something like that. It was a number that I think the official number that the U.S. is holding on behalf of Germany was something like 1,500 tons, and it was a number that would take it below 1,000. And the Fed balked at that, and that's how they settled on the 300 tons over 7 years. Which it didn't take 7 years. I think it got done in 3. But according to reports from entities that saw the gold that was being moved, a lot of it wasn't even the original bars that came from Germany right after World War II.
Yeah, considering that we can put 25 tons of silver, or gold for that matter, on a flight.
Yeah.
I mean, it really should have taken 7 days. I mean, so it shouldn't take even 3 years. But I think the embarrassment, it's like people like yourself, us, everyone was out there saying, what's going on here? Why would it take that long to simply pick up a shipment and send it back to the owner? I mean, it's a ludicrous situation.
I think we know why.
But, you just mentioned something, oh, yeah, look, I tell you what, you can come and visit one vault. Hey, does that not remind you of the structure we're looking at right now? And I was done a piece, I think, last time and this time, about the asymmetric nature of a Basel III compliant over-the-counter contract, which is deliverable, and the minute it lands in New York, in the COMEX, then you get the COT side of that picture. And so basically, the COT report consists of the unknown leveraged amount of leverage on a position which is backed by a Basel III compliant over-the-counter contract. So this asymmetric trade, which is deliberately imbalanced, no one knows. So what the real picture is, because how many times have these Basel III compliant over-the-counter positions, which legitimize the hedging of positions, no one knows how many times that's being leveraged. And what you just described is exactly that kind of a situation where you've got, come on over, but you can't see all of it, but you can see a bit of it.
Yeah, that's exactly what the point is. And I think where they run into trouble, as you know, is when entities that have titled claim to the gold sitting in custodial vaults in New York and London, when they go to say, hey, time for me to take personal possession of it, when can I come pick it up? And I think we're starting to see that, as you know and as you've documented over the last year. And I think that's part of what's been pushing up the price of gold.